is National Rollercoaster Day. Well, I think for Americans at least. It's not as much of a big thing here in England, but yeah. So I'm just gonna go through a bit of history of Rollercoaster Day. It always falls on August the 16th. Yes, like I say, this day is National Rollercoaster Day because on August the 16th, 1898, the first patented vertical loop roller coaster by Edwin Prescott opened on this day. So yeah, that's a little bit of history of Roller Coaster Day. And how should you celebrate it? Just ride some roller coasters like I'm doing here at Thorpe Park on a very busy day. The oldest types of roller coasters were believed to have originated from the Russian mountains, or at least they were called the Russian mountains. They're essentially ice slopes, and well, at least I think they are. And roller coaster designs that are sort of more similar to the ones we see today have existed since around 1872, when J.G. Taylor received one of the earliest patents of a roller coaster. He called his creation the inclined railway, because that's sort of what it was. I believe this website this website I'm using now doesn't really mention the switchback railways, which were really popular in America, I think. But yeah, and of course the oldest roller coaster in the world is the switchback railway, or whatever it's called, at some place in America. It opened in 1982. It only has a top speed of about 10 or 12 miles per hour. Other rides like Colossus and Stealth go a bit faster than that these days, and they're not made of wood, but some of the Pleasure Beach wood coasters are, and Wicker Man is, and Megaphobia, and a lot of other more modern coasters use wood as well, like the RMCs. So yeah, it's quite an interesting history of roller coasters. I recommend you go and do some. There's some really good videos. I mean, CoasterBot and Coaster Studios are bound to have done some videos on the history of roller coasters. Another very interesting fact about roller coasters is that people who like roller coasters have higher dopamine levels than people who don't. So that basically means that people who like roller coasters are happy and people who don't are sad. Can't make this shit up, can you? Roller coasters can take many different shapes and forms. For example, this roller coaster here, Nemesis Inferno, is an inverted roller coaster, which means it hangs below the track, whereas a ride such as Colossus over there is a standard sit-down roller coaster where you sit on top of the track. Well, not literally on top of it, but the train sits on top of it. Of course, as well as just standard sit-down and suspended coasters, you have wing coasters, stand-up coasters, spinning coasters, and even backwards roller coasters. And drops have got steeper and steeper. We now have beyond vertical drops, and drops that are also inversions, like this one. Wow. you hear there is the sound of the chain dog attaching to the chain, and that noise you can hear now as it's going up is the anti-rollback device, which prevents it from rolling back if it was to stop for any reason. Of course, a chain isn't the only way of getting a roller coaster train to the top of the ride. Other forms of getting the roller coaster to the highest points of its ride include booster wheels or a launch. There are many different ways of launching a roller coaster. For example, Stealth uses hydraulic launch, which basically uses compressed hydraulic fluid, and when that releases, it pulls a drum which pulls a cable, and that cable has a little catch car which attaches to the train. Older methods of accelerating a roller coaster include just dropping a large weight that's attached to a cable, compressed air, and LIM motors. But a more modern version would be like, say, what's used on Icon at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which is an LSM launch. The best kind of launch, in my opinion, is a hydraulic launch, because of that sheer acceleration you get. There are different forms of braking roller coasters. Not braking as in like breaking down, I mean braking as in like slowing the train down, getting rid of that final bit of energy. The most common way, which is mostly used on older roller coasters, is friction, which basically just has a fin or a block in the middle of the train where things that close on them as they go past, or the default position is closed for health and safety. And when the train goes over that, the friction causes it to slow down, and through that friction you get heat, and that's how that last bit of energy is released. So, a bit of a physics lesson there. And the more modern form of braking, which doesn't actually slow the train down completely, so all coasters technically have to have friction brakes, but the more modern method, which is more efficient, I think, because it doesn't wear down, is magnetic brakes, which basically have a fin on the track where like things go over those fins, and well, the two opposite poles basically attract, but they're electromagnets, so I think if there's a power cut, it don't work. So yeah. And a magnetic brake is basically the opposite of a magnetic launch. Brakes can also take different shapes or forms, not just mechanically, but in terms of what they do. Some brakes, like trim brakes, just slow it down so that it's not going too fast, whereas things like block brakes slow it down completely so that a train doesn't bump into the one in front. That's how like roller coasters can have multiple trains. They have block systems and block sections which prevent other trains from going into another section and colliding. Theme parks tend to put theming around rides to add to the ride experience. For example, this wing here adds as a head chopper element, which makes you duck because you think your head's going to be chopped off. Other forms of elements include leg choppers, which do the same thing as head choppers but for your legs, and there's just general scenery around that gets close, and fire and water effects. But unfortunately, that's not working on the Swarm today. The first ever kind of inversions on roller coasters were vertical loops, but they weren't very common because they were generally unsafe, especially considering most older coasters didn't have lap bars and they relied on friction to keep it on the track. Since the invention of this tubular steel roller coaster by Aerodynamics, more inversions became more popular, and the first type was the corkscrew, then the vertical loop. Since then, of course, many more inversions have been invented, such as the cobra roll, the bat wing, the Immelman, the dive loop, the zero G roll, the inline twist. The list goes on. There are many record-breaking roller coasters. For example, Colossus here at Thorpe Park was the world's first 10-looping roller coaster. That was beaten by the Smiler at Alton Towers over a decade later. The big one was once the world's tallest, although currently the world's tallest is King Dakar at Six Flags Great Adventure. The longest is insert below at insert below. And the fastest is Formula Rossa at Ferrari Land in Abu Dhabi. There's no denying that sunset is definitely the best time to ride roller coasters. And on that note, I think that concludes this little video about roller coasters and Roller Coaster Day. Thanks for watching.